Nothing I see in this room, from this street, from this window, in this place, means anything, means anything. Nothing I see in this place means anything, means anything. Well, thank you all so much for joining me here on New Year's Day. Happy New Year's. I'm Forgiveness Willie, teaching forgiveness from the Ozarks so that I can learn it. Thank you so much for joining me here on Lesson 1 of the 365 lessons in A Course in Miracles. This year, we'll be reading through the Foundation for Inner Peace version of A Course in Miracles. And our first lesson, nothing I see in this place means anything. Wow, what does that mean? Well, we'll get into that here in a little bit. But before we look at it a little closer, let's take a look at the preface in our beginning. And let's read what the author, Helen Schuckman, is the one who penned the book. She says that Jesus gave her the words, but she did put in a preface in her own words. This preface was written in 1977 in response to many requests for a brief introduction to A Course in Miracles. The first two parts, how it came and what it is, Helen Schuckman wrote herself. The final part, what it says, was written by the process of inner dictation described in the preface. How it came. A Course in Miracles began with the sudden decision of two people to join in a common goal. Their names were Helen Schuckman and William Thedford, professors of medical psychology at Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons in New York City. It does not matter who they were, except that the story shows that with God all things are possible. They were anything but spiritual. Their relationship with each other was difficult and often strained, and they were concerned with personal and professional acceptance and status. In general, they had considerable investment in the values of the world. Their lives were hardly in accord with anything that the Course advocates. Helen, the one who received the material, describes herself psychologist, educator, conservative in theory, atheistic in belief. I was working in a prestigious and highly academic setting, and then something happened that triggered a chain of events I could never have predicted. The head of my department unexpectedly announced that he was tired of the angry and aggressive feelings our attitudes reflected and concluded that there must be another way. As if on cue, I agreed to help him find it. Apparently, the Course is the other way. Although their intention was serious, they had great difficulty in starting out on their joint venture, but they had given the Holy Spirit the little willingness that, as the Course itself was to emphasize again and again, is sufficient to enable him to use any situation for his purposes and provide it with his power. To continue, Helen's first-person account, 3 startling months preceded the actual writing, during which time Bill suggested that I write down the highly symbolic dreams and descriptions of the strange images that were coming to me. Although I had grown more accustomed to the unexpected by that time, I was still very surprised when I wrote, "This is A Course in Miracles." That was my introduction to the voice. It made no sound, but seemed to be giving me a kind of rapid inner dictation, which I took down in a shorthand notebook. The writing was never automatic. It could be interrupted at any time and later picked up again. It made me very uncomfortable, but it never seriously occurred to me to stop. It seemed to be a special assignment I had somehow, somewhere agreed to complete. It represented a truly collaborative venture between Bill and myself, and much of its significance, I am sure, lies in that. I would take down what the voice said and read it to him the next day, and he typed it from my dictation. I expect he had his special assignment too. Without his encouragement and support, I would never have been able to fulfill mine. The whole process took about 7 years. The text came first, then the workbook for students, and finally the manual for teachers. Only a few minor changes have been made. Chapter titles and subheadings have been inserted in the text, and some of the more personal references that occurred at the beginning have been omitted. Otherwise, the material is substantially unchanged. The names of the collaborators in the recording of the course do not appear on the cover because the course can and should stand on its own. It is not intended to become the basis for another cult. Its only purpose is to provide a way in which some people will be able to find their own internal teacher. And that's what we're looking to find, our own internal teacher. The next section, what it is, still in the preface. Again, what Helen wrote. As its title implies, the course is arranged throughout as a teaching device. It consists of 3 books, a 669-page text, a 488-page workbook for students, and a 92-page manual for teachers. The order in which students choose to use the books and the ways in which they study them depend on their particular needs and preferences. The curriculum the course proposes is carefully conceived and is explained step by step at both the theoretical and the practical levels. It emphasizes application rather than theory and experience rather than theology. It specifically states that a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. That's out of the manual for teachers, page 77, by the way, that where it says that a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. That's where we're going to reach for that experience. Although Christian in statement, the course deals with universal spiritual themes. It emphasizes that it is but one version of the universal curriculum. There are many others, this one differing from them only in form. They all lead to God in the end. The text is largely theoretical and sets forth the concepts on which the course's thought system is based. Its ideas contain the foundation of the workbook's lessons. Without the practical application the workbook provides, the text would remain largely a series of abstractions which would hardly suffice to bring about the thought reversal at which the course aims. The workbook includes 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. It is not necessary, however, to do the lessons at that tempo, and one might want to remain with a particularly appealing lesson for more than one day. The instructions urge only that not more than one lesson a day should be attempted. The practical nature of the workbook is underscored by the introduction to its lessons, which emphasizes experience through application rather than a prior commitment to a spiritual goal. And out of the workbook, page 2, some of the ideas the workbook presents you will find hard to believe, and others will seem to be quite startling. This does not matter. You are merely asked to apply the ideas as you are directed to do. You're not asked to judge them at all. You're asked only to use them. It is their use that will give them meaning to you and will show you that they are true. Remember only this: you need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter or decrease their efficacy. But do not allow yourself to make exceptions in applying the ideas the workbook contains, and whatever your reactions to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than that is required. Finally, the Manual for Teachers, which is written in question and answer form, provides answers to some of the more likely questions a student might ask. It also includes a clarification of a number of the terms the course uses, explaining them within the theoretical framework of the text. The course makes no claim to finality, nor are the workbook lessons intended to bring the student's learning to completion. At the end, the reader is left in the hands of his own internal teacher, who will direct all subsequent learning as he sees fit. While the course is comprehensive in scope, truth cannot be limited to any finite form, as is clearly recognized in the statement at the end of the workbook, which says, on page 487 of the workbook, "This course is a beginning, not an end. No more specific lessons are assigned, for there is no more need of them. Henceforth, hear but the voice for God. He will direct your efforts, telling you exactly what to do, how to direct your mind, and when to come to Him in silence, asking for His sure direction and His certain word." And that's the experience we want to awaken to, our own internal teacher, the voice for God within us, the voice for peace. Okay, now let's go look in the workbook for students, and let's read the introduction to the workbook. "A theoretical foundation such as the text provides is necessary as a framework to make the exercises in this workbook meaningful. Yet it is doing the exercises that will make the goal of the course possible. An untrained mind can accomplish nothing. It is the purpose of this workbook to train your mind, to think along the lines the text sets forth. The exercises are very simple. They do not require a great deal of time, and it does not matter where you do them. They need no preparation. The training period is 1 year. The exercises are numbered from 1 to 365. Do not undertake to do more than 1 set of exercises a day. The workbook is divided into 2 main sections. The first dealing with the undoing of the way you see now, and the second with the acquisition of true perception. With the exception of the review periods, each day's exercises are planned around 1 central idea, which is stated first. This is followed by a description of the specific procedures by which the idea for the day is to be applied. The purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. The exercises are planned to help you generalize the lessons so that you will understand that each of them is equally applicable to everyone and everything you see. Transfer of training in true perception does not proceed as does transfer of the training of the world. If true perception has been achieved in connection with any person, situation, or event, total transfer to everyone and everything is certain. On the other hand, one exception held apart from true perception makes its accomplishment anywhere impossible. The only general rules to be observed throughout, then, are first, that the exercises be practiced with great specificity, as will be indicated. This will help you to generalize the ideas involved to every situation in which you find yourself and to everyone and everything in it. This will help you to generalize the ideas involved to every situation in which you find yourself and to everyone and everything in it. Second, be sure that you do not decide for yourself that there are some people, situations, or things to which the ideas are inapplicable. This will interfere with transfer of training. The very nature of true perception is that it has no limits. It is the opposite of the way you see now. The overall aim of the exercise is to increase your ability to extend the ideas you will be practicing to include everything. This will require no effort on your part. The exercises themselves meet the conditions necessary for this kind of transfer. Some of the ideas the workbook presents you will find hard to believe, and others may seem to be quite startling. Some of the ideas the workbook presents you will find hard to believe, and others may seem to be quite startling. This does not matter. You're merely asked to apply the ideas as you are directed to do. You are not asked to judge them at all. You're asked only to use them. It is their use that will give them meaning to you and will show you that they are true. Remember only this: you need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter or decrease their efficacy. But do not allow yourself to make exceptions in applying the ideas the workbook contains. And whatever your reaction to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than that is required. So now, our first lesson. Nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, means anything. Nothing I see in this place means anything. Now, what does that mean? Well, he's not going to explain today necessarily, but what I want to go ahead and give you just a little heads up on it. Let's go ahead and read what we're going to do, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on here. But maybe I'll say just that since I started. We're learning to undo the way we think that things are. You know, in order to be a miracle worker, to have a miracle, you have to be able to let go of your fixed position of the way you think things are. So maybe that would be sufficient. Nothing I see in this place means anything. Now look slowly around you and practice applying this idea very specifically to whatever you see. And then tell yourself, if you're sitting in a room, which I'm not right now, but this table does not mean anything. This chair does not mean anything. This hand does not mean anything. This foot does not mean anything. This pen does not mean anything. Then look further away from your immediate area and apply the idea to a wider range. That door does not mean anything. That body does not mean anything. That lamp does not mean anything. That sign does not mean anything. That shadow does not mean anything. Notice that these statements are not arranged in any order and make no allowances for differences in the kinds of things to which they are applied. That is the purpose of the exercise. The statement should merely be applied to anything you see. As you practice the idea for today, use it totally indiscriminately. Do not attempt to apply it to everything you see, for these exercises should not become ritualistic. Only be sure that nothing you see is specifically excluded. One thing is like another as far as the application of the idea is concerned. Each of the first 3 lessons should be done. Each of the first 3 lessons should not be done more than twice a day each, preferably morning and evening. Nor should they be attempted for more than a minute or so, unless this entails a sense of hurry. A comfortable sense of leisure is essential. We want to do that throughout, a comfortable sense of leisure. So you understand what you'll do twice today? And we'll do one of these during this little this time together before we close here in a moment. Nothing I see in this place means anything. And then we'll just, this hand does not mean anything. This bamboo leaf does not mean anything. And just look around and you'll tell yourself that. And then look a little further out, and that turkey doesn't mean anything. That, whatever you might be seeing in your field of vision. Let's see. Before we close with our meditation, though, that little And you second time, you students have been through it once, you've probably worked up to where you're doing a lengthy meditation morning and evening. Don't stop doing that. I would encourage you to continue that, but do that as an after effect after you've done your lesson for the day. Do whatever the lesson says. And then if you're used to spending 15, 20 minutes in meditation because you've already been through the course, well, go ahead and do that. I don't want you to not do that. But let's do the lessons as he says to do, that 1 minute twice a day. But if you're used to practicing your hourly review, well, you can still do that. But why don't you practice something other than this lesson for these first three particularly? The reason I say that is because he's going to give us a balance here. You know, in lesson 13, which let me just read a paragraph out of lesson 13, because he's going to balance this in a little bit. He's going to say, actually, a meaningless world is impossible. Nothing without meaning exists. However, it does not follow that you will not think you perceive something that has no meaning. On the contrary, you will be particularly likely to think you do perceive it. So what he's going to balance this, but for right now, he wants us a couple times a day just to look around ourselves and tell us, nothing I see means anything. That blank does not mean anything. Okay. And I also wanted to, let's just talk for a minute about some things going on around the world. Just some world religious holidays, which I really like for all the people that listen to me to know kind of spiritual holidays that are going on around the world. Hanukkah continues, so happy Hanukkah. I think today's maybe the last day. No, today's the last day of Kwanzaa. Happy Kwanzaa. I think tomorrow's the last day of Hanukkah. Of course, it's New Year's Day. Happy New Year. Let's see. Feast of Mary, Mother of God, which is Catholic holiday. The Shinto people have the Ganjinsu, or also known as Ganten Seiya, which is basically a 3-day festival that the Japanese New Year. And it started in 1873, I think, when Japan started getting more westernized. But it's probably based on a custom that was done for, in tune with the moon, I expect. But anyway, they stabilized it as January the 1st for the calendar year. Global Family Day. I always try to make these to where they're family friendly, and you can give your kids a good operating system. So bring your kids along to learn these concepts, what I'm trying to say. St. Basil's Day, that's the Greek Orthodox Church celebration. World Day of Peace and Universal Hour of Peace. So, January, I think they say that if you'll meditate 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after the New Year, if you're not one of those people that likes to party, I think that's a good time. It's lots of people around the world, and they say the people doing that in all the time zones, that's a full day of peace. Okay, let's see. And out of edible landscaping, we're going to go through it this year and just tell you different plants. Pawpaw. We're not going to take the time to read about pawpaws in general. We will probably tomorrow when we have a little more time. The Shenandoah pawpaw, which is a Peterson pawpaw, a real taste treat, a smooth custard texture, just the right balance of fragrance, sweet fruity flavor, and agreeable aftertaste. Large fruit, few seeds, by weight, firmer texture than wild pawpaws, but softer than the other varieties. And it's an Asamina triloba. And let's see if we can't go ahead. And I'd like to sing the introduction to you, and then we're going to do that little our looking around for a minute. So we have our first meditation today. Nothing I see. Yep, let's get this right. Let's get the right, I think it's... Nothing I see means anything. Nothing I see in this room, from this street, in this place, we'll do that in a minute. But our introduction. This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. The course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Now our lesson. Nothing I see in this room, from this street, from this window, in this place, means anything. Nothing I see from this hill, from these woods, in this bamboo, from this ground, means anything. Now you just say, that means anything. That blank, fill in the blank, does not mean anything. That, whatever you're looking at, say, does not mean anything. And that tree does not mean anything. Now that does not mean anything. That does not mean anything. That does not mean anything. Just look around and tell yourself that does not mean anything. Does not mean anything. Okay, nothing I see in this place means anything. And I like to take a word from peace from different languages around the world, and since we're starting with English, let's use word for peace for English today. Peace be with you. Nothing I see in this place means anything. Thank you all so much for joining me. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Be sure to do your 2 meditations, and thank you again for joining me. Nothing I see in this place means anything. Peace.